Prologue. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Cedric, Eliza's brother, asked as they got out of the car. "Not at all," Eliza replied. "But since when has that ever stopped me before?" Eliza grinned as she strode towards the door to the factory. It was an impressive building, long and wide with smokestacks that jutted up skywards, creating thick grey clouds that blended with the first streaks of morning sunlight like a watercolour cityscape. Purchasing the factory had been her idea. Her father and brothers were sceptical at first, Cedric especially, but she had won them over. She knew she would. She was far too smart to take an idea to them unless it was bulletproof, and this one was. Once she'd outlined all of the money they could save by cutting out the middleman and simply manufacturing the combines that would be used on their farms themselves. Not to mention all of the money they could make by selling the combines to other farms. Well, it was nearly impossible to argue with her. Not that Cedric hadn't tried, but he came around eventually, which is why Eliza opted not to push back when he insisted on coming with her today. Cedric could only handle so much change at once. He had already had to adjust to the idea of Eliza being part of the family business, and then he'd had to adjust to her being good at the family business. She couldn't expect him to immediately adjust to the idea of her visiting a factory alone, too. He'd certainly handled it better than Great Aunt Martha. She'd been utterly aghast at the idea. "A factory floor is no place for a lady," she said with a huff. Eliza had insisted that any lady, or any woman for that matter, should have a place wherever decisions were being made or business was being done, which only served to appall Great Aunt Martha further. Something Eliza knew she was supposed to feel guilty about, but nevertheless caused her secret delight. Great Aunt Martha's outrage became much less frustrating for Eliza the moment she started seeing it as a game. "I don't know where she gets these ideas, but it certainly isn't from our side of the family," Great Aunt Martha had said at the time, staring at Eliza's mother pointedly. Lady Montagu hadn't been much happier about it than Great Aunt Martha, but that had certainly never stopped Eliza before either. Eliza was adamant about the need to spend time in the factory. She knew it was a bit of an unorthodox approach, but she felt it was essential. The men in her family had a tendency to assume they knew enough about virtually everything to forego conducting research on much of anything. But not Eliza. Being a woman meant she had to be twice as good in order to be taken half as seriously, and that meant being fully informed, which was how she wound up here this morning. Eliza didn't feel like she could get a sufficient understanding of the factory simply by reading the balance sheets that the previous owners had provided as part of the sale. Even looking at images and diagrams of the combines they produced wasn't enough. She needed to understand the intricacies of the place, to experience its rhythms, meet its workers and witness its processes, if she was truly going to understand how to improve and expand the business. She needed to see it all with her own eyes, and that meant she needed to spend time inside. The idea of visiting the factory as quickly as possible after purchase had always been an integral part of Eliza's plan, but now that she was here, she had to admit she was nervous. She knew very little about what to expect, which, to be fair, was precisely why she wanted to come here in the first place. But still, the degree to which she didn't know exactly what waited for her on the other side of these doors made Eliza a bit anxious. Think of it as an adventure, she thought to herself. After all, she had always loved an adventure, and viewing it that way, as opposed to an opportunity to embarrass herself, made it seem far more exciting. "After you," Cedric said as he opened the factory door. Eliza took a breath, smiled, and walked through the door.